The building was wrong before the earthquake hit. I knew it the moment I stepped off the elevator on the 14th floor at 6:09 that Tuesday. A hairline diagonal at the northeast stair column. Fresh, meaning recent settlement. The kind of thing a buildings inspector notes on a clipboard and flags for follow-up. The kind of thing I noted on my clipboard and felt in my back teeth. Because I have stood in enough collapsed structures to know what a building sounds like when it is quietly deciding to quit. I had the radio to my mouth when the floor dropped. Not a dramatic movie lurch. A single hard snap, like a rifle shot from directly below, and then the building simply became a different building. The lights went. The window glass on the east wall blew outward in a flat sheet, and the floor tilted 6 degrees to the south and held there, shuddering, while the world outside came apart at the seams. I grabbed the column with one hand and the door frame with the other, and I rode it out. 12 seconds. I have counted longer. When it stopped, I stood up, checked my hands, present, broken, and did what I spent 11 years training to do. I started cataloging: dust load, moderate; smoke, none; secondary fire risk, low for now; structural sound. The building was groaning, but it was groaning in the right registers, meaning the primary frame was intact. The 14th floor was compromised but not pancaked. People were alive in here. I heard them before I saw them. A woman's voice, low and controlled, telling someone to stay still. A man somewhere to my left coughing in short bursts. Daylight coming through a split in the east wall. Enough to work by. I moved toward the woman's voice. She was in what had been a glass-walled conference room. Now mostly a frame and a floor covered in ceiling tile and scattered paper. She had her jacket pressed against a gash on a colleague's forearm, and she was speaking to him quietly, steadily. Own forehead was bleeding, and she either hadn't noticed or had decided it didn't matter yet. Later I would learn her name was Mara Sloan, that she ran a regional development firm with 400 employees. That she was known in this city for the kind of calm that made boardrooms listen. Sitting in that rubble with someone else's blood on her hands, I believed all of it. "Building inspector," I said, coming through the door frame low. "Ray Callum. Everyone in this room needs to move to the interior wall, the one without windows, and stay low. Do it now, please." She looked at me once, nodded, started moving people. That is the thing about genuine authority. It doesn't announce itself. It just moves, and other people move with it. There were 6 of us on 14, Mara. Her colleague with the arm wound, a man named Curtis. A woman from accounting who had been in early. 2 men from building maintenance who had been on a HVAC call, and me. I did a full sweep of the floor in 4 minutes. Talking to the building the whole time, knocking on walls, listening to the echo, reading the stress fractures, the way you learn to read them, after enough hours underground. The northeast stairwell was blocked. The south stair had movement. I could feel air coming through the door, but the landing below had dropped 18 inches, which meant it was navigable with help, but not a first option. The elevator shafts were out. We were not trapped the way people think of trapped. We had air, we had structure, we had options. What we needed was time in the right sequence. Secondary tremor in the next 40 minutes, probably. I told Mara, quietly, while the others settled against the interior wall. This building has already done its worst. The frame held. We are going to be fine. But we need to wait for the initial rescue teams to establish the perimeter below, before we start moving anyone down that south stair. She looked at me steadily. "How do you know that? About the tremor?" "Pattern," I said, "and the sound the building's making. You get to know it." She held my eyes for a moment. "All right," she said. "What do I do?" Handed her my flashlight and told her to keep Curtis calm and his arm elevated. She did exactly that for the next 2 hours without complaint, without panic, without asking me again how I knew anything. She simply trusted the information and acted on it, which is rarer than people think. The secondary tremor hit at 7:43, 34 minutes off my estimate. The building shuddered and resettled, and we were all already braced against the interior wall, and nothing new fell. When I heard the rescue team signal taps on the stairwell door below, 3, pause, 2, the standard. I knocked back and we started moving. Curtis down first, with one of the maintenance men supporting his arm. Then the accounting woman. Then the second maintenance man. I ran the south stair 4 times in the dark, and on the 5th trip I came back for Mara. She walked down on her own. She didn't need help. She just needed someone to go first and tell her where to step. And I did that, and she followed precisely. And we came out, into the gray morning light of the street, to cameras and emergency vehicles and a crowd. And I handed her off to a paramedic, and gave my name to a responder with a clipboard, and walked to my truck. I had another inspection scheduled at 8:30 on Delancey. I made it by 8:40. I did not speak to any reporters. I did not file anything beyond my standard incident report with the city inspector's office, which noted the pre-existing column crack and recommended immediate structural review of the building. I went home that afternoon, picked Griffin up from school, made chicken and rice for dinner, helped him with long division, and went to bed. That, I thought, was that. It was not that. 6 days later, I was on a residential block on Forsyth Street, checking foundation clearances on a new 3-flat, and riding slow circles on his bicycle, on the sidewalk, behind me because it was a Saturday, and his grandmother was visiting her sister, when a black company car pulled to the curb. Mara Sloan got out. She had a neat bandage at her temple, and she was wearing a gray coat, and she looked like exactly what she was. A woman who runs a large company and is accustomed to finding what she goes looking for. She also looked like a woman who had not slept especially well in the past 6 days. She stood on the sidewalk, and she looked at me, and she looked at Griffin on his bicycle, and she looked back at me. "Ray Callum," she said. "I'm Sloan. My team spent 3 days on this," she said, "because I needed to understand the way you read that building, the way you called the secondary tremor, the stair sequencing, getting Curtis out first, the way you signaled the rescue team. Safety director says those are FEMA USAR protocols, urban search and rescue, task force level." She stopped. "He says there are maybe 200 people in the country trained to that standard." I waited. "He found a Ray Callum," she said. "FEMA USAR Task Force 7. Team leader. 11 deployments including the Grayson Tower collapse in 2015, the Millhaven refinery in 2017, Port Smith flood structure work in 2019. She paused. "Officially retired in 2020. Decorated twice." She looked at me steadily. "That's you." "That's me," I said. She was quiet for a moment. Behind me I could hear Griffin's bicycle tires on the sidewalk, the soft tick of the wheel. "Why a building inspector?" she said. It wasn't an accusation. It was a genuine question. The kind of person us ask when they actually want to understand. I looked at Griffin. He had stopped his bicycle and was watching us with the calm, open attention of a 10-year-old who has learned not to interrupt his father at work. "His mother died in 2019, I said. "February. Illness, nothing to do with the job. But I was in Portsmouth when it happened. I flew home for the service, and I stood at her grave in February mud, and I thought, he's 7. And I am 1,100 miles away when anything happens." I shook my head. "Task force work is good work. The best work I've ever known. It takes you away. And he needed someone who came home." Mara Sloan looked at Griffin for a long moment. "So you became a building inspector," she said. "I became a building inspector," I said. "Turns out I know a fair amount about buildings." Something moved across her face. Pity. Something quieter than that. Recognition, maybe. "I came to say thank you," she said, properly. "I also came because my firm has 4 buildings under active development in this city, and I would like to retain you as a structural safety consultant. Your rate, your terms, your hours." She glanced at Griffin again. "School day hours, if that's what works." I thought about it. It was a generous offer. It was an honest offer. "I'll look at your plans," I said. "No promises until I see the drawings." She smiled at that, a small, real smile. "That's fair." She handed me a card and went back to her car, stood on the sidewalk and watched it pull away, and then Griffin coasted up beside me and stopped, 1 foot on the ground. "Who was that?" he said. "Someone I helped," I said. He considered this. "Is she nice?" I thought about the way she had pressed that jacket against Curtis's arm and talked to, quietly in the dark, for 2 hours without being asked. "Yeah," I said. "She's nice." He nodded, satisfied, and pushed off again on his bicycle, and I turned back to the foundation clearances on the 3-flat, clipboard in hand. The morning sun coming clean and level down Forsyth Street, and I finished my work.